Hey guys! Today I'm finally going to be talking about my character Lila. I asked a few months ago if you guys would like to hear her story and it seemed like there was some interest, so I'm happy to share it with you now. Before we get started, I want to mention that I tried a different technique for this piece and I'll be talking about that towards the end of the video. For now I'll be talking about fan characters and the process of removing them from the fandom they were created for. So feel free to grab a snack or do some drawing while you watch and listen, and let's get into it! As I mentioned a moment ago, this is my character Lila Tybalt. She was originally a Marvel fan character who fit into my own sort of headcanon version of the universe, which had a bunch of my original characters in it. She was the daughter of the second ringmaster of the Circus of Crime, and as you may or may not know, my all-time favorite superhero from any comics or anything, aside from my own characters, is Hawkeye. In various canons, he's involved with the Circus of Crime, and in my fan canon, he was a former member. For the sake of explaining Lila's story, I kind of have to explain Hawkeye's real quick. Abridged version, that's sort of an amalgam of various versions. He joined the circus as a kid, gets trained by the swordsman, then leaves after he learns that the swordsman is a thief. After that, he becomes an Avenger. Okay, I'm leaving out a lot of parts, but this video isn't about his backstory, it's about Lila. So, in the fan universe I had, Lila was a pretty little girl when Hawkeye was in the circus. He liked her pretty well, and they were on good terms. After he left, she grew up in the circus, performing and being trained to be the next ringmaster by her father. When she was about 16, she realized that it was, of course, the Circus of Crime. Something in her head told her that she didn't want to be a part of it, and especially didn't want to lead it. So she packs up and leaves. Lila finds herself in New York and runs into a street musician playing for pocket change. She listens to his entire show and looks for something to give him. She only has a couple dollars, which she throws into the guitar case, and he smiles and tells her that he can tell that she has less money than he does. She should keep it. Lila thanks him, but insists that he should keep it. He deserves it. He introduces himself as Rio, who, I'll mention, is my sister's character. She actually gave me permission to have him appear in my comics, which I'm really happy about, because he may or may not be related to some of my characters. She actually was involved in this fan universe as well, so that's why Rio is here. Anyways, Rio says he's headed to go get some lunch and that she's welcome to tag along. She does, and the two wind up at a small cafe. He asks where she's from, to which she doesn't have a good answer. She grew up in a traveling circus, not knowing where she actually was born or from. Rio is intrigued and asks more about the circus. Little does Lila know, her father's looking for her, and he's quite close. Rio's familiar with the circus, and, as he reveals, is friends with a certain archer who may have left many years ago. She's delighted to hear he's doing well, but the happiness is drowned out when she realizes that her father will drag her back to the circus whether she wants to be there or not. So she asks Rio if he knows anything about disguises. He agrees to help her, and thus Lila begins keeping her hair dyed at all times, as well as amassing a collection of makeup, colored contacts, and very convincing wigs. Through her friendship with Rio, she discovers a passion for music, and he begins teaching her how to play guitar. When Rio gets a record deal, he manages to get Lila a job as an assistant there. She winds up as a roadie, but she doesn't mind. Keeps her traveling and away from her father, and it lets her focus on her new love of music. That's all of her story I'll tell you for now, but as you can see, it ties in a lot with the Marvel aspect. But I really loved Lila as I developed her more, so I wanted to try to separate her from the story and make her sort of a loose character, one I could use in my comics. But how would I do that without essentially creating an identical story around her with slightly different characters? That's one of the problems with fan characters. They're usually so ingrained in the universe they're made for that it's hard to remove them without severing major parts of their story. So how do you do it? Well, it usually involves restructuring their story almost entirely, and in some cases it's not even possible to do without ruining the character. With Lila, I kept the circus, but I changed what it was. Some aspects remained similar, in that her father was training her to be the future ringmaster, but now the circus was actually a warm, inviting, not crime-centric thing. Her father is an entirely different character now as well. Now the reason Lila ran away is that she's afraid of responsibilities, more or less, and that she didn't want to be part of something the outside world regarded as a place for freaks and the outcasts. Rio is still in her story, as he was a completely original character who was in the story but can stand outside of it. However, the connection of Clint is removed. There's no one in that role anymore, as it wasn't a necessary one. It added another layer of depth to the story, but it wasn't required. It's really hard to balance what keeps the character the same as their original incarnation, but different, new, and unique. I had to let go of quite a few things about Lila that I used to love, but now I'm happy and I have a character who I can use in my comics or do whatever I want with without having a connection to Marvel. You can, of course, still see similarities, but if you ever try to remove a fan character from the universe they were created for, of course you're going to see the similarities. Unless you completely remake the character, changing everything about them, you'll always see that. But I think Lila has been severed from the circus of crime enough, and that she has her own story now. I mean, circuses are a norm in superhero comics, so if I wanted to use her in mine, no one would probably notice or particularly care. In fact, no one would probably have known she was a fan character to begin with if I didn't tell her original story here. Now, moving on from that, let's talk about how I did the art. I used the rough pencil tool in Clip Studio Paint Pro and did a quick sketch, then went straight in with the body over it. I copied the body, face, and hair and flipped it for the second Lila on the left. For some parts of the piece, I duplicated the layers to solidify the coloring, as there were some thin parts and holes. I used the G-pen for coloring a couple of parts, but other than that, I basically only used the rough pencil. For the background, I used a textured blending brush to give it more of a blurred look, and I also added a blur over the background, I think. I tried to keep everything very simplified and mostly lineless, and I'm really happy with the result. I think I'll use this style once in a while, but it's definitely not going to become my main look. I just needed to try something new to stave off some stagnancy in my creativity. And anyways, that's all for today. Before we go, I wanted to say that if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. Feel free to comment them below and I'll do my best to respond. I also wanted to thank you all for 50 subscribers. I appreciate it so much. If you'd like to see new art daily and keep up with me, my Instagram is the place for that. I'm at LissieDixonArt and I'd love to connect with you there. I also have a Ko-fi account if you'd like to support me monetarily, as well as a RedBubble shop if you want to get some merch with my art on it. I also have 3 webcomics, all free to read on Tapaz, Webtoon, and my own websites. Links for everything are in the description. Hope to see you next time. God bless!